some character. We have a real character over here in our Parsha, Korach. And we're going to work backwards a little bit. Yeah, definitely. And that is true. The ultimate sign of a leader is a person who absolutely runs for the hills when it comes to him becoming a leader. He has no interest in it, and he doesn't want it, and he's, so to speak, forced into it because the generation needs him. That model, of course, is seen by whom? Moshe Rabbeinu. You don't want to like Moshe. Please, 7 days, according to the Medrash, 7 days. Yeah. Who is that?
What is the American politics?
And he didn't. Wow. I wonder who that was. Interesting. Could have been he'd be the right man for the job. Lahavdil, and Plato, the Republic, the philosopher king. If I'm not mistaken, Plato said that's all. That's a sign of a true leader, someone who has zero interest. He wants to be on his own, learning, contemplating God, the universe, and stuff like that. He does not want to be in the politics and this and that. But it's, so to speak, hoisted upon him for the Tzorech Sha'ah. And then many of them have been that way over the years. They weren't running after it, just the generation needed them. That's always a good sign. Korach, not quite there. So we have the famous Medrash. So of course, the chicken and the egg, because he had his famous Halachik Shilas. So he challenged Moshe Rabbeinu. Anyone remember the famous Shilas? The two Shilas according to the Medrash. One Rashi quotes, the other one's in the Medrash, not quite about Rashi, but similar idea. Yes, you have a beggar of all trailers, so then not everyone could actually show and tell. I could do show and tell. So he said, you need to go ahead. Not saying those who don't wear trailers are wrong. It's a big machlokas to those who say that we don't have trailers and this is not the real one and you shouldn't be doing it. So it's a big machlokas. One day in the Halachik we'll discuss that. Okay. But until then, it's a machlokas. Whatever does look good. Okay. So tchelas, so his famous question about tchelas, you have a garment that's all blue, you need the tzitzis that's tchelas, because the blue reminds you of Hashem, Shamayim, Niyam, and this and that. He said, of course you do. He said, to talk about. And Korach laughed, and he was very, very charismatic, and they laughed with him, and he influenced a lot of people. Rashi says, a lot of big people were influenced by him. Okay, then the famous joke he made of Moses, the second one was what? The mezuzah. You go into the room, it's all filled up with Sfarim, and you remember Hashem, it's all over the place. You still need a mezuzah, Moshe? Of course you do. Okay. So, and he won people over. Okay. He had people who had, he convinced them that Moshe was not a legitimate leader and he's just a power-hungry person and he's misunderstanding halacha. That was he had to have an in. To say, well, Moshe didn't receive the Torah at Har Sinai. We were all there. That's not going to win. He's going to laugh him out of town. So he needs some way that disprove Moshe. He received the Torah at Sinai, but his application of the Torah, that's where it's off. He's applying it wrong. And he's telling us in these picayune details that God never meant that. He knew how to argue. You can't go ahead and just say something was an outright lie. All of the, I don't get to politics. I can't control myself. I'm sorry. So all the Democrats who somehow want to believe that for all these years Biden is the most brilliant guy in the world. He's at the top of his game. He's sharp as a whip. Look up sharp as a whip in Webster's. There's a picture of 85-year-old Biden. And then last week, you just can't hide it. And now they have to try to figure what we're going to do. Well, it's because he was on vacation all week, whatever. Or they're going to finally dismiss him. It's late at night. He's not out on Camp David. He took trips. But they were able to cover up as much as they could for years and years. But they reached a certain point where reality stares in your face and even the great lie just won't work. Okay. What should have happened on October 7th is many of our leaders in Israel, where they should have said, you know what, we had so many concepts that were totally off. I'm going to step down. Should have been a lot of people that did. It should have been. Okay. A few did, but it should have been a lot. And just realize, you know what, reality is just hitting in your face. Peace, and work with them and have them come into our country and give them jobs and it's going to all work. You have to say that we're going to have. No. There are enemies, and your high-tech solutions with ridiculous boots on the ground is still what's. Just admit, it's very hard to admit reality, but sometimes it's in your face, and no matter how big a lie you are, sometimes it's too big. Okay, so with Korach, he can't say Moshe was not appointed by God. He can't say that. The millions of people saw him. There's no way out. He's misunderstanding the Torah. It was a brilliant approach, brilliant. And he was good, he was charismatic, and he won people over. But now that he won people over with that approach, so what was wrong with that approach? What's wrong with that approach? Maybe Moshe was too focused on the, quote, picky details, lahavdil. So I think there's an obvious answer. 3,300 years of the Masorah gives us a very clear answer. How could that approach not work? The two clear reasons, probably hundreds more, but two that I'd like to mention. Why that approach is off. They didn't see it then. He was so charismatic and he riled them up, and they didn't see it. It says, Rashi, you're not going to believe it, who he won over. And Rashi says, Vaikach Korach Mashach Rashi Sanhedraot, heads of Sanhedrin. He got some Talmidei Chachamim, because it says Nisi'ei Ha'edah. He won over some big people. It's crazy. He would never win them over by saying Moshe is a total fraud. That he couldn't say. But he could say Moshe's interpretation of the Torah is where things are off. That's already a good egg. So he had a lot of fodder there for sure. But his specific attack on Moshe with halacha, what was that? So it sounded good. But there's two major flaws with the argument, but they were in it. When you're in the middle of something, you don't see it. Okay? Two major flaws with his argument. What are the two major flaws? Number one, he's telling us why you have tchelas and why you have mezuzah. It's to remember God. And therefore, we can have other ways to remember God, and that's it. That's number one. That was premise number one. Premise number two is once you have another way to reach the objective of a mitzvah, then you are at liberty to do what? Drop those details, change those details. Okay? Where halacha says, in terms of getting to tameh, reasons behind the mitzvos, we could go and speculate, read the Mor Nevuchim, read the Sefer Chinuch, read the Kuzari, and enjoy all the beautiful tameh, all nechmad night. That is the reason. We know 100% this is exactly it, and there's no other idea behind it. It's a huge step to make. And even if we do, even if the Torah says, it says by tzitzis. What does it say by tzitzis? Risa Maso. The Torah does give some hint. Even if you do know the reason, once you start playing around and you say, well, let's take the ta'am, reason behind the halacha, and we're going to now alter the halacha a bit, change it a bit. Once you do that, then what? It's a slippery slope. Slippery slope. In our own lifetimes, those that come from America, how many hundreds and hundreds of Solomon Schechter schools were there? There's probably still some left, but I'm sure nothing like it was back in the day. And JTS, Jewish Theological Seminary, I think Solomon Schechter himself I don't know much about it. I know he's a world expert in the Cairo Geniza. He was there in the Cairo Geniza where there's a lot of old farm that he found, and he was one of the experts. I don't know much about his life, but I think he was pretty close to keeping halacha, I think. But I'm really not an expert in his life at all. But he had an interesting concept called Minhag America, where he said the reform went way too far over. They just threw everything out, that we're not doing that. But there's a few changes we need to modernize. One of them was the mechitza in the shul. In Europe, we had mechitzas. Here, we don't need that. A few minor changes. But once you open up that Pandora's box, it's hard to close it. It's hard. And then 70, 80 years later, that's it. How many conservatives we know, tragically, their kids are marrying off, and the numbers are just horrible. And when it was functioning in the 40s, 50s, and they were talking about halacha, but in JTS, so they're holding on. At least they were perpetuating as Jews. So you can argue, but you're not following Orthodox law. Okay, but at least you're continuing as Jews. Once you're married out, it's over. Tragedy of tragedies. But you can't play with halacha. You can't. So you'll say, Danny Myers, there's never a case where if a reason behind the halacha doesn't apply, then we don't change halacha. There's no such thing as that. There are. there are times that it exists. And you need to see when built into the halacha, it already said that when this specific reason, usually by rabbinical law, if this specific reason doesn't apply, then the halacha doesn't apply. One example would be drinking water that was, let's say you had a cup of water left out at night in your kitchen. Okay? So can you drink it in the morning? Some people drink it. Some people might just not want to, germs, just whatever it is. But halachically, it's fine. But the Gemara actually talked about not drinking at night. Why? Anyone else?
A bug going.
That's right, because the snake could have gone in and left venom in there. And so therefore it was dangerous. And that's it. That's what the Gemara talks about. Okay, what would science say about that today? A snake could put venom into. Well, okay, good shy that gets into the whole science and halach and chazal and all that wonderful stuff. But that was what they said. And yet we all drink water today. That's left out. If you're fastidious, may not. But I don't think you're going to find anyone that's going to say, no, halachically it's awesome. You can't drink it because
My son says
that what?
he doesn't drink. If the water left out overnight, he won't drink.
So now what's going on? The Gemara says not to. So your son seems to be right at first glance. The only thing is, the Shulchan Aruch himself writes that the takana was only set in communities where who was roaming around at night? Our friendly snakes. Okay. It is true.
And he has snakes where he lives too.
Okay. So someone has said, good. So once again, but what's my point? Not to discuss this point specifically. Not to discuss this point specifically as much as what? To say there you read through the Rishonim already. From 800-900 years ago, commenting on the Gemara a few centuries before them, based on indications in the Gemara and in the Rambam and other sources, built into that halacha, whatever, they didn't make it a fixed halacha. Okay? So you have to see those rare times where they said, this is the reason behind this halacha, and if this reason doesn't apply, fine. So in theory, you can have such a case, but we can't go ahead and what? Decide. Once in a while, you might have a machlokas. Shaving on Chalamoid. How I wish I could shave on Chalamoid. Not just I shave generally, but halachically I wish I could shave. Because going ahead, if a person never shaves, then fine. But a person shaves every day, and then you have 2, 3, 4 days of not shaving, you don't look your best for Chalamoid. It's not covered for Chalamoid. So why don't I shave Chalamoid? Because there's a gezeira from the Gemara in Moed Katan, which said that what? That they prohibited shaving Chalamoid. Why? Because, as shocking as it sounds, 2,000 years ago in the Gemara's times, they didn't have Norelco or Phillips. And it was hours of going. It had electric shaver. Okay. I have to translate that into South African. What's the electric shaver of choice in South Africa? Not Phillips or Norelco. What was it? Remington. Oh, yeah, it was in America too. That's right, Remington. Okay. So none of those are around. Okay. A sign of a good commercial is if, unfortunately, it's still stuck in your head 60 years later. With a guy from Remington, I like the company so much, I bought it. See that? See the shtuyot? If I would remember Torah, like I remember the shtuyot from 60 years ago. Sorry, God. Right? And still, we remember it. Can you imagine remember Torah like that? Wow. Anyways, so they didn't have shavers. It was hours and hours. And the person would say, you know what? The chemicals and this, and they have scissors, but they don't think there was a razor. You know what? This is a big process. So either just leave my beard, I'm not going to cut it at all. That was one approach. Or no, I do want to cut my beard, but you know what? I have a week off. Chalamoid, I'm off. That's a great time to shave. Right now, I don't want to take away a few hours from my work schedule. I'll shave then. That's what was going on. So the rabbis went ahead and they said, you know what? No shaving Chalamoid. If you want to shave, you want to leave your beard, then great. Right? Because I'll talk about Hadras beard's very nice. But if you don't want to shave, don't shave. But if you do want to shave, not on Chalamoid. Rather when? Erev. Okay? So now the question is, a person shaves, and he shaves Erev Yantif. He's not negligent in any way. On the contrary, he's careful to shave for covered Moed, covered Yantif. And now it's a Moed. Wait a second. So if your look is Mugulach to be shaven, that's your kavod, right? So then not only would you be allowed to shave on Chol Moed, but what? You should. You should shave. And there are those who say that the whole reason of the takana was what? So you don't come and be negligent. I wasn't negligent. On the contrary, I was careful to shave. So Rav Lichtenstein, Rav Soloveitchik, and others hold that yes, this isn't a fixed takana where you can't shave cholamoy no matter what. No. The reason history is clear, and therefore not only you're allowed, but it's a mitzvah to shave for those who shave. And Rav Moshe grapples with it as well, and he hears that side, but he's not ready to pass in halacha l'maisa. So fine, you have a few instances in halacha where we wonder, the poskim wonder if the reason was built into the halacha. But to go ahead and just have carte blanche rights and just take it at, and any time the reason doesn't apply, in your opinion, it's the end of the system. It's the end of the system. It was Korach's mistake. The only thing is, I would say, I don't know Salom Shechter well, but I would say I would give Salom Shechter more credit than I would Korach, because Korach was come with an agenda. He was come with an agenda to go ahead and topple Moshe, and this was just being used as an agenda. Okay, so he had an agenda. Salom Shechter saw what happened to the reform. They just went so far. He was trying to balance things out. So I don't think he had a bad agenda. I think if he come back today, he'd be like so hurt. He'd be in tremendous pain because he wanted to conserve and to save it. He really, I think, it's only Hashem chest, what do I know? But I think his intention. I don't want to compare it to Korach in that way. I don't think he had bad intention. Korach was coming from a bad place. But this system is a system. And if I use an example, and I wouldn't say lahavdil. Some people tell me, no, you say lahavdil. So my mom was a great tennis. She was a great athlete. So even when she was here a few months ago for the wedding, we went bowling. She was a great bowler. She had 200. She had her 200 bowling games. Yeah. That's even more than my 60s that I get. Although, don't ever go bowling with my Shlomo and challenge him. Because last night I took him, and 3 games in a row, you can do 2, you get 3, over 100 every time. Now, he's a solid 120, 130. So don't bet on my son Shlomo. He's good. So and he sets his mind to something, that's it. He does it. So what am I talking about? Why did I get to Shlomo and bowling? No, help me out here. Help me out. Huh? My mom. Thank you so much. So listen to this. Great way to finish off. So my mom was in the Maccabiah games about 35 years ago. Yeah, she was good. She's not for bowling for tennis. Okay, over 50. And so she came, and it was really fun. It's a nice event. Get people from Jews around the world together from Australia and all of this. It was very sweet, except for one problem. The one who built the bridge, you may remember this, over the road, did not build it Keteken. He did not build it properly at all. And there were people from Australia on it, died. And Australia took us to court. It was what was supposed to be a beautiful unifying event was just a disaster. And I think he might still be in jail. He might still be in jail for life. He killed people. And he clearly was negligent in the building code. Okay. And I won't say lahavdil. Hashem set up laws of nature. There's laws of nature. And if you play and you tinker with the laws of nature, okay, and whether it's how to build a bridge according to laws of nature, the amount of metal, iron, concrete, the shape, all of the rules of it, you don't. Yes, of course, correct. No, that's right. That's right. In the shul here, especially what happened across the street, my dear colleague. I'm not macabre. Okay, I don't know what happened there, but I'm sure that they would make. Hopefully, that wouldn't happen. Oh, they did. Oh, good. But anyways, there's laws of nature. You play around with the laws of nature, and you go ahead and you do little shtikim and trickim. You may get away with it, or you may cause people to die. Right? So too, it's not lahavdil. Just like God created laws of nature in physics and science and astronomy, and you have to work with those laws. There's laws of nature, so to speak, with Torah. This is how the system could be sustained. and you start tampering with it, it's not sustainable. Orthodox Judaism is around till this day for two reasons. Siyata Dishmaya, obviously, with God's help. And the other reason, because it's kept as a system. Is it perfect? Sometimes we make mistakes, for sure. But as a system, it's going. Because it is continued as a halachic system. And it's not tampered with. And sometimes there's grave mistakes that are made here and there, but the system continues. Anyways, that's what I want to talk about a little bit with Korach coming from a very impure place, but he needed something to latch on to attack Moshe. He couldn't just say, hey, Moshe, you were not at Sinai. You didn't receive the Torah. You didn't take us out of Egypt. It's not going to go anywhere. They all saw it. So he had to work with him being the great liberator, had to work with the fact that he was at Sinai. But now it comes to interpreting halacha, that's where you're off. And he won over many people. Because, maybe there's room to go ahead and not be so crazy and picky-yoon. Now, looking back 3,000 years, it's not going to work. But in those days, it was just the beginning of it. So maybe you can have more or less feel good. You have the general purpose, you have the reason behind it. And you don't need to have Moshe. Maybe Moshe really is pushing too much. Looking back, I think it's the obvious one. But in those early days, a charismatic guy like Korach, you see how he's able to pull in. And it's a good time to renew our commitment. Sometimes like, why this, why that? We don't have those details. Sometimes it's just going to fall apart. And that's it. Not just for that reason. Hashem said to be careful about that detail, and to be careful about that detail for its own reason. Not just because the system won't last otherwise. I wish everyone a good Shabbos and welcome. Okay, take care. Be well. Take care. Shabbat Shalom.